Good morning and welcome to Behind the Screen. I am JM. We are back, feeling much better. Thanks to everybody for the well wishes. This is a show where we sit around, we talk about gaming, we talk about writing games, designing games, planning games, running games, review games, just talk about the things we love about gaming. And we're in the middle of a series where we're looking at the different science fiction genres and how we can best replicate those here at our tables. So first of all, hello to everyone, to Grom and Chris and Phantom and Padre and John. Good to see all of you this morning. And a big thanks to my buddy Phil. Phil knows that I love Deadlands and Savage Worlds, and he sent me a copy of The Sixth Gun, which is a comic series I've just recently got into, and I was chatting with him about it, and he surprised me with it makes perfect sense to me that Savage Worlds and Pinnacle would have done a Sixth Gun adaptation for the role-playing games. If you have not read Sixth Gun and you enjoy Deadlands, I highly recommend it. It is a supernatural, Weird West comic that revolves around 6 magical and damned guns. I'm only about halfway through, but it has been wonderful. I was wondering why you were out there. That makes perfect sense. So, welcome to the next part of our sci-fi tour. We're going to look at near science fiction, or what some people might call low science fiction. And then we've got three more genres to wrap up after this. We're going to be looking at hard sci-fi, space opera, and science fantasy, which is basically space wizards in the future past. So Star Wars. But today we're talking about near sci-fi, and near science fiction has a lot of things in common with low fantasy. The idea that we're just several steps removed from our world, the idea that what is changed about our world in low fantasy is about what is changed in near science fiction. So what we see here is, as Phantom said, about 5 minutes in the future. We're looking at a possible future that does extend beyond our own planet, unlike, say, cyberpunk, like the core of cyberpunk. But in a lot of ways, we get just enough technology, just enough advancement to place humanity in a different setting and then let them explore what is going on there. So there's a couple of great sources for this, and I'm sure that we will have far more to discuss, but a lot of Asimov's work falls into this, a lot of Alistair Reynolds' work falls into this. Some of my personal favorites, The Expanse starts off as near future science fiction, right? We basically have colonized the moon, Mars, and the belt. And when we start, that's really what is going on. V, which is the series about Earth being invaded by lizard people, near future. Firefly, I would argue, is very much a near future setting. We have just enough technology to get us off planet, to set up colonies. But then the rest of our technology really, falls more along the lines of the West. Yes, The Expanse is perfect. And The Expanse will cover when we get to space opera as well, because I think that's one of the best parts of a near future setting, is that it works wonderfully as a stepping stone for something more. Babylon 5 starts very near future, and then steps into space opera, and then steps into something more, right? The end of season 4 kind of shows us where Earth's future goes. And then the other one for me, quintessential to this, is Alien and Aliens. And Alien 3, despite there were some good points of Alien 3, but they were few and far between. But again, we have kind of the similar thing. We have this idea of, hey, we have just enough technology to get out into space, and nothing really changes beyond that. Grom, the original V, in my opinion, is the better V. I really enjoyed Fifth Element. That's another great one. Man, Fifth Element is, my wife and I just rewatched that. That is so quirky and eccentric and practically perfect from start to finish. I think they said there was one artist, concept artist, who did the design for the whole movie, like from start to finish. The costuming, the characterization, the ships, the aliens. Was it based off of a comic? I don't think so. I think it was just this guy who really had this vision for what he wanted done. You guys can correct me in the chat. So let's talk about some of the tropes of near future. Very rarely do we have anything that resembles faster than light travel. Again, I would say at the start of Babylon 5, we are already seeing the seeds of space opera. But we have things like cryosleep, cold sleep, if you will, like we see in Alien. We see things like in The Expanse, the acceleration couches and just enough technology to prevent us from mostly stroking out when we accelerate to that. But very rarely do we see true faster than light travel. Well, we have our colony ships, generation ships, where the idea is to get to another planet, you have to build a ship large enough that several generations of colonists can live and die on the ship long before they reach their goal. Cryogenic suspension is another one that we see a lot. I know I just mentioned that. That is, so what it does is it, in the way that like epic fantasy focuses a lot on the landscape and the terrain, and like, right, Tolkien, the journey is very important. It's one of the things that I love about Peter Jackson film is all of the scenes of people walking, because it instills this sense of reality and largeness to the world. Avenue 5 is one of my favorite shows in recent memory, John. And yes, that's a great, I would not even have thought of that. But that's great as well. And the Terrans, yeah, of StarCraft is another good point. Padre. Totally lost my train of thought because you guys gave some really good examples here. Another thing is colonies, right? Colonies are key in science, in near future sci-fi. We don't have the ability to terraform quickly. We don't have this view of space opera where we have these very single biome planets that are very easy for humans to adapt to. What we have is the idea that terraforming is a very slow process, or that we're going to have to really search to find places where humans can survive. And most often these are colonies. And usually, like in low fantasy, where politics is very high on the list, the politics in near future science fiction become very, brought to the fore. We have things like Mars Rebellion in Babylon 5. You have things of the rebellion and the war between, in Firefly, right? The separatists versus the inner worlds, the inner planets. In The Expanse, Mars rebels and becomes an independent power within itself. Thank you to Rookcat for the sub mom. That is amazing. You have gifted 560 subs to the channel, man. Rook, thank you so much. That is, again, your generosity is amazing, and congratulations and good luck. And I will say very little more than that. You know what I'm talking about. So, other things that stay focused, right? When we look at low fantasy, what are people doing? They are chasing after coin. They're looking to the next job. They are looking to how they survive. That is key in near future as well, right? Think about it. What is going on with Alien? There are a bunch of miners coming back from a job, trying to get back so they can have their payday and their bonus intact. They stop at the planet because there could be salvage, which would, boost their boost the money that they're able to get from this haul. Yes, Rook, congratulations, my friend. That is amazing. Well, I wasn't gonna steal your thunder, man. This was yours to share. In Firefly, I would argue that maybe 95% of the episodes revolve around getting enough money to keep the ship flying. Which is great. It keeps characters hungry. It keeps us invested in sort of, we can relate to this, right? It's my argument about how Han Solo is actually the point of view character for us in Star Wars. Right? Luke's a farmer, but he's kind of whiny. He's interested in all of these other things. But Han Solo, man, he owes money on his car. His car sometimes breaks down and isn't working. He's just trying to get paid so that he can continue existing. And I feel like that's a very real and grounded character to connect with. And as we said, we're not going to see a ton of fanciful things in near science fiction. It's our technology, just better. And maybe with one or two key advances that allow us to get to the story where the author wants us to be. In Alien, we have pulse rifles. In Firefly, we have 6-shooters. And Vera, possibly the nicest gun that we see in the show. Right? There's one prototype laser that they're after in one episode. This is, yes, it's Deadlands Lost Colony is, and we're going to talk about that on Tuesday when we talk about the mechanics and games that kind of really reinforce this and bring this to the fore. So the other thing to keep in mind is that they tend to be small in scale. Space opera is where we get the vast grandeur of the science fiction genre. Near future, we're focused on colonies. We're focused on single ships. We're focused on single solar systems. The goal is not to show off an amazing world, much like high fantasy does for the fantasy genre. Near future science fiction, which Philip K. Dick wrote a ton of, that's another one of the great sources of near future science fiction. There was a term that I heard as it referred to Philip K. Dick, that he wrote social science fiction. And I think that's the key here with near future science fiction. It focuses on how do we as humans react to these advances. We're not trying to show Roddenberry's, utopian federation. We're not trying to visit a dozen planets in a single story like space opera. We're not trying to tell the sweeping arc of hyper-realistic, hard science fiction military battles like Weber. I would actually argue that, to a certain degree, there's a lot of near future science fiction in the Battletech universe. It'll be interesting to talk about Battletech, and I'll do a review of that before we get too far in there. But right, we have a lot of these same scopes and tropes, but extended even further out. Especially when you look at 3025. When you're just focused on the Intersphere Wars, I think there's a lot to play with there in a sort of near science fiction trope and genre. Anyway, that is yes, John Ringo writes a lot of great science fiction material, and Troy Rising starts with the main character trying to bootstrap humanity off Earth. Yes, the 3-body problem, as I understand it, is very near sci-fi. I have yet to read it, but it is on my stack of books to read. So that's near science fiction. That's kind of the sources that we're going to be looking at, the games we're going to be looking at to try and emulate or to try and see it mechanically. We're going to be looking at Traveler. We're going to be looking at Lost Colony. There's a couple other ones that I want to really kind of bring up, but I think Traveler is sort of the granddaddy of this style of gaming. Does Drake's Hammer Slammers fit? Ooh, well, Padre, I'm gonna have to ponder that, because again, I think the thing to remember with hard definitions of genres is that most stories, unless they're the pioneer story, right? Unless, or Conan for sword and sorcery, or Lord of the Rings for epic fantasy. Unless they're sort of the pioneer, most stories sit in a Venn diagram between several genres. I'm actually writing an essay on Thieves World right now on how Thieves World sort of alloys high fantasy and low fantasy and a bit of grimdark before grimdark was even a thing, and how most good stories take the genres and the tropes and find new ways to fit them together. It's like taking two different Lego sets and connecting them together. This is key to good writing. Let's see here. Rook says, you were gifted with a few BattleTechs back in the day when you started playing Cypher System Dread. Ooh, interesting. Is that the role-playing game, so Mech Warrior, or BattleTech the skirmish game? Or the novels set in the BattleTech universe? Honestly, Michael Stackpole's BattleTech novels and his Star Wars novel, I, Jedi, are among some of my favorite science fiction stories written. John says, anytime you run into some technology which physics currently deems impossible, like FTL, that removes the near quotient of near or low science fiction. Yes, I would say you are correct, because for the most part, near science fiction, low science fiction, is sort of the stepping stone between today and hard sci-fi. And so it allows us to build that bridge and see what are the points between here and there. So yeah, let me know, Rook. I'd be interested to chat with you about that on the Iconic Discord channel, which, if you are not a member of the patronage, if you would like to be, you can jump over to patreon.com/iconicproduction, and we will get you access to the Discord, where you can talk with all of us during the week about all sorts of great things. So that brings us to the end of the sources. On Tuesday, we'll talk about the games and the mechanics that I think are necessary to really make something like this sing. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. Thank you to everyone who sent me well wishes. Well, I was definitely not doing two of those three things. And I will see you all on Tuesday to discuss more behind the screen. Until then, have a good one.